All right, y'all looking at the thumbnail, bro. We got our camouflaged OP. Let's check this out. Oh no. Y'all know I like when they got the he put the little gaming things in there.
Camels are one of the most unorthodox builds in the game. In the right conditions, their combination of unique abilities and special set of elemental resistances makes for a shockingly effective strategy. But overall, where do camels rank on the tier list? Is their weird shape and odd skill set actually overpowered?
They use their intelligence.
Or is their current player base carried by their human allies? Today we'll discuss the history, stats, and abilities of the camel, and ultimately decide. We'll begin with the origin of the camel. Camels first began rising in the meta at a time when
we know we got to start with that Legend of Zelda background, the Legend of Zelda background theme song. You know how we do it.
A lot of mammalian herbivore builds were really taking off. Some of these herbivores spec'd into an ability called Rumination to gain bonus XP from the newly buffed grass spawn rates. Some herbivores spec'd into more powerful PvP abilities, like keratinized horns and armor, in order to remain more well defended when out in the open. The camel, by contrast, took neither of these paths. Because they could not digest grass, they instead needed to spec into abilities which would allow them to survive the frequent long treks between an ever-decreasing supply of nutritious tree leaves. So what are the camel's most important abilities? The most obvious one is their hump. The hump serves multiple purposes.
That is nice, bro. Bro, I bet you sit on that thing, you feel comfortable, bro.
Primarily, it's used as a site for fat storage, functioning as an energy reserve which allows camels to survive incredibly long journeys without access to food. With a maxed out fat reserve, camel players can ignore hunger damage for several months as they search for new spots to forage. But in addition to providing starvation resistance, allocating all the camel's body fat to one spot gives them excellent heat resistance, by allowing for extremely efficient heat exchange everywhere else on the surface of the camel's body. Now, of course, this ability does come at a cost.
No.
The hump is an awkward and cumbersome load to bear, weighing the camel down and making its movement a lot more wobbly and top-heavy while running. Definitely not an ability you could just throw onto any other herbivore build and see benefit from. You need to have other abilities to help mitigate the weaknesses the hump incurs. So what other abilities does the camel have? The second main ability is the camel's feet pads. Rather than walking on hooved toes like most other herbivores, camels spec into large padded feet. Now, normally when a player spends their evolution points unlocking padded feet, they're doing so in order to mask the sound of their steps and buff their stealth stat. While it does technically offer a small stealth bonus, something as tall as a camel is not going to be very successful at hiding.
No.
Instead, similar to the hump, this ability protects camels from the stress and chip damage most players would accrue when walking for such long distances. It also spreads out their weight, preventing them from sinking into whatever surface they're standing on. This is especially important when traversing sandy or snowy environments, as it negates the movement penalties from this sort of terrain. Camels have a few other minor abilities as well. Their sickle-shaped blood cells make them more resistant to dehydration, and their tough, leathery mouth negates puncture damage, allowing the camel to be one of the few builds.
See, I saw that, bro. Like, I don't think you're supposed to feed it like lemon. You're supposed to get it none of that. You know, I've been seeing people say you're supposed to do that, but then I hear other folks saying you can do it, but you don't supposed to do it. I don't know. It's something like that. You don't supposed to feed it there right here, but I don't know. I've been looking that up right now. People be getting mad at that.
Able to eat cacti without being hurt by their spines. A lot of players are under the impression that camels possess a powerful spitting ranged attack, similar to the cobra or archerfish. Unfortunately, no, there's not really anything particularly threatening about the camel's spit, nor do they actually employ this skill in combat. They may vomit when threatened, but this is usually just a result of stress, not a defensive ability. That's not to say the camel's mouth isn't dangerous though. In addition to their tough,
that's crazy,
leathery palate, one of the things that sets camels apart from other herbivores is that their teeth can actually deal serious damage. And with a neck as long, powerful, and flexible as the camel's, there's not many angles you could attack a camel from without risking a nasty bite counterattack. Camels can also attack with their kicks.
Oh yeah, I forgot. They that can hurt.
though their padded feet won't deal as much damage as, say, the sharp hooves of a zebra or giraffe. Anyway, those are the main abilities of the camel build. Next,
It's pretty much just a push.
let's look at the camel's stats.
All right, here we go, bro. Intelligent. I ain't gonna lie. I thought intelligent gonna be up, like at least up to like 80. But I forget MBN or whatever that is. Defense. Ooh, dang, defense is. Okay. Crazy.
And quick note, I should mention that there are two variations of camel, the dromedary and Bactrian. Their most apparent difference is that the dromedary has one hump while the Bactrian has two. But honestly,
I like the one with the two.
The more important difference is in their base stats. Bactrians are larger, more powerful, and better adapted to the cold. The dromedary is smaller, but slightly more agile, and better suited for extreme heat. Camels have slightly above average intelligence, necessary for them to be able to remember the long routes that they travel on. As mentioned earlier, camels do have a more damaging bite than most herbivores. But compared to the damage large herbivores can dish out using their tusks or horns, they still fall short. Their defenses are quite strong, especially when it comes to elemental resistances. But on top of those, the camel's height makes it very difficult for predators to land an attack on them. Thanks to their special terrain movement bonuses, most of the time they don't even need to worry about predators, as no sane player would seriously try to follow them into an inhospitable desert. But even on normal solid ground, the camel's movement speed is pretty decent, albeit kind of awkward. Obviously, even with their padded feet slightly dampening the sound of their steps, their stealth is still abysmal, given that camels are the third tallest land animal after the giraffe and elephant. And lastly, their perception is pretty normal for a mammal, except for the camel's partial immunity to the blindness condition, on account of their long eyelashes, which block incoming sand and dust. This is all well and good, but the question remains, just how viable is this setup really? Is the camel just another build completely carried by humanity? So the camel is actually one of the more recent additions to the humans' party, with domestication being unlocked during the mid to late Bronze Age, well after dogs, cats, and horses had already formed alliances with humanity. And it was with the last one, horses, that camels were competing with for the spot on the team, as both horses and camels are useful to function as a mount. Horses are the faster mount, and in a lot of scenarios that's truly all that matters. In Bronze Age human versus human PvP, being able to outmaneuver and flank their enemies was one of the most important factors in securing victory. But for just about everything else, camels were far more reliable. Camels have a higher equipment load, meaning they can carry much more cargo. They have higher vitality and defense, and thus can carry human players a much further distance in much worse conditions. And of course, the fact that they are not impeded by difficult terrain is a huge perk for choosing the camel. It's for this reason that as humanity began transitioning away from a nomadic raiding playstyle and towards Bronze Age palace-based economies, having a mount that could carry goods across the vast desert between empires was of vital importance. Camels were the only viable option for humans to cross the large deserts, like the Outback, Sahara, and Mojave, until humanity unlocked trains on the tech tree. So for a substantial length of time, camels were an integral part of the economy across most of the world. And although railroads have made them obsolete in some servers, when it comes to crossing the desert, they are still genuinely one of the best options. Similar to horses and cattle, the vast majority of camel players are purely opting for the human-focused team combo playstyle. There are only around 1,000 players who are part of the truly wild faction that never joined up with humans. Does this mean without humans, camels would be low-tier trash? I can see why you might jump to that conclusion. Despite their immense physical strength, I rated domestic cattle as B-tier, in part because, without humanity, it's unclear if they could even survive in the wilderness. Honestly, B-tier might have even been too generous. But there's no question, when left to fend for themselves in the wilderness, camels not only survive, they thrive. When humanity unlocked the motorized transport tech, many human players kicked out the camel players from their party. This happened in America, in the Middle East, and most significantly in Australia. Now, an invasive mammal succeeding in Australia is really not that big a surprise, but thriving in the outback specifically is undoubtedly impressive. Here, they must contend with one of the other most successful Australian invaders, the dingo. And let's be real, it's not even close to being an even matchup. Being historically from Asia, camels had to contend with everything from lions and leopards to wolves and even tigers. So despite their awkward top-heavy appearance and lack of powerful damage-dealing abilities, their incredible survival skill earns them the rank of A tier. Now, this video focused specifically on the Bactrian and Dromedary camel, the two builds most players would associate with the word camel. But the camel faction does technically contain two other builds, the llama and alpaca. These belong to the player base of prehistoric camels, which chose to venture south into the South America server, rather than across the Bering Strait and into Asia. Because of their vastly different environments, they obviously spec into different abilities. However, a lot of their core features are more or less the same. I have a lot to say about these creatures, mostly that they are the most disgusting, nasty creatures I've ever encountered. Alright, so this ad read is going to take a bit of a different turn than usual, but here's the deal. A few months ago, I got a message from the team at Wendover Productions asking if I wanted to be on a game show. Considering this is the same team that makes the show Jetlag the Game, I immediately said yes. And as a result of this decision, I ended up being on a wild, crazy show that ultimately led to me getting kicked and spat on by alpacas. That's really all you need to know, but let me explain a little more about the concept behind this show. It's a game show where a bunch of YouTubers, including myself, had to compete in a series of challenges in order to win money. The trick is that one of us was a saboteur, a traitor who would deliberately but subtly throw challenges. And at the end of each day, we need to vote off immensely fun streaming now. If you have heard me, and phenomenal, including some of mine, and tons of great original. Nebula.tv/tier 40% off their annual plans. As little as...
Well, there you go, ladies and gentlemen, man. Camels OP. Respectful. Legal blind description, all that good stuff.